Hey, how's it going? It's Eric. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for watching these videos. I really do appreciate it. I know it's been a very long time since I posted a video. These last couple of years have been pretty crazy, so I decided to take a break, but I am back and will be trying to post more videos throughout the rest of the year. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience going through the whole process of trying to become an officer. Going to briefly talk about taking the AFOQT, that process, getting my packet together, the interview process, and all of that. So hopefully this won't be too long of a rambling video. If it is, I will break it up into two parts, but specifically, yeah, for this video, let's just talk about going through the officer selection process as an older person, specifically in the United States Air Force Air National Guard. So just a little bit of backstory. Back when I was 38 years old, I wanted to join the Air Force as an officer. I got in touch with the recruiter and I started the process, and I had gotten my letters of recommendation together and started getting my pack together, and it just turned out that by the time all would be said and done and the next board would happen, I would have already been too old. I already had passed that 39 years of age mark. So I ended up enlisting instead, which happened to be still to this day I feel as was a great decision. So fast forward now, I've been in for about 3.5 years, and my buddy Andre, one of the recruiters at my unit, told me like, hey, there is an open officer slot in the maintenance squadron. You should totally apply for it. Naturally, me, the first thing I thought in my head was like, okay, I'm not gonna do it, just because I'm 42 now. I'm not officer material. I met the officers there, like these are like really smart, intelligent, well-spoken individuals, and I did not see myself kind of at that level. So I guess like a week went by and more people started coming up to me, and in my unit was like, hey, there's this open officer slot, you have a degree, why don't you apply for it? And of course, I told my boss, like my close friends, are like, hey, I'm not gonna do it, just because I still have to take the AFOQT. I haven't been in school for years. Like, gosh, I graduated in 2009, so a very long time. I haven't taken any kind of standardized tests, or I just pretty much figured I'd just fail anyway. So but everyone around me, they really pushed me like, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to regret not attempting it at all in the first place. So definitely think about it and try to apply for this officer's position. So everyone around me, they were like kind of pushing me like, hey, go for this officer position, like these don't come up much. So I double checked with our commander and the recruiters that, hey, like, okay, I'm 42, can I apply for this thing? And it turned out, yeah, I can do it. Okay, so since I decided to do it, now I had to get some things together in order, right? I had to pass the FOQT, I had to put together my officer packet, make sure my PT was good, and have my letters of recommendations ready to go. I think for the timeline, I had about 4 months to get all of my stuff in order. So the first big chunk, the most important thing I had to do was to make sure I passed the AFOQT. And for me, like, I'm not a book smart type person, I'm more like a street smart kind of guy, if that makes sense. But so I had to figure out how I'm gonna pass this thing, right? So first thing I did was, I ordered every single AFOQT book off of Amazon. I didn't know which one would be the good one or the bad one or whatever it was, but I just knew that I had to study all of this stuff. I only had 4 months, and I say only had 4 months just because, like I said, I'm not book smart, so I had to figure out how to, I had to like squeeze in as much time as possible to knock this thing out. I woke up at 4:30 every morning, and I just started studying from page 1 of every single book. And I studied every day all the way up until the night before I took the exam. Just in general, like, as far as the AFOQT was concerned, I did go through a couple of hiccups. The place that I was scheduled to take it over here in Los Angeles, they had to cancel it several times because of COVID. And so as the timeline was getting closer, I was starting to get a little bit nervous. As the timeline started getting closer to ending, I started to get a little more nervous just because I had to take this thing before the deadline. But I did end up finding a place that would allow me to take it, and that happened to be like 3.5 hours away. But either way, it all worked out. I ended up taking the exam, no problem. While I was studying the exam, I had to make sure to get those letter of recommendations knocked out. Like, graciously asked, like, hey, like, I'm trying to go in as an officer again. Would you be able to write a letter of recommendation for me? And I reached out to the mayor of Torrance. Like, he was we're really close. We did a lot of volunteer work together. So he helped me out. Ralph Ab, like one of the mentors in our Facebook group, and my mentor, he made it all the way to chief master sergeant. He's been an instrumental tool in my career, just helping me out. And so he was graciously wrote a letter of recommendation for me, and several of the executives at my civilian employer also had written letters of recommendation for me. So I had that together. So I had my letters of recommendations, everything else that was required for the packet for an enlisted person. So I had gotten my AFOQT date scheduled. I had gotten my letters of recommendation, and I'm studying my butt off every day and every morning and every evening, as much as I could for, to make sure I passed this test. And then I also had to start studying military stuff, right? Like chain of command, current events, and I had to go deep into current events. And I'm not a person that's really big on watching the news. I like listening to podcasts and audiobooks, and watching YouTube videos on other things like building on kind of like finance and things like that. But like I'm, just current political and things like that, those kind of events I'm not really big into. But I had to make sure that I was well versed in all that stuff. So I just dove deep into everything that I felt may have come up during that officer board. So I submitted the packet and I just waited. I did end up passing the AFOQT, which I don't know how I did. Like, that was one of the hardest, what I felt was like the hardest test I've ever taken. Just having the time constraints and the pressure, and then driving the 3.5 hours out there to the base to take the exam. It was definitely a stressful test and stressful environment. Submitted the package, and then I waited, and then sure enough, I got an email back saying, hey, you're scheduled for an officer board on this date at this time. Be in dress blues and be ready. And I think you can tell from like my demeanor, I'm not really comfortable like speaking in front of people or in like large crowds or being in front of an audience. So got that email. It's time to start prepping for this board. I made, again, like, I had to make sure like I knew all of my military things, like such as like, chain of command all the way up and down, history, current events, kind of strategic type scenario questions, like all these kind of things I was trying to prepare for. And just briefly, the way I prepared for it is I borrowed my nephew's like Oculus virtual reality goggles, and I bought like some public speaking program where you can practice doing board interviews. I used to play in bands, right? And I played shows all the time, and I played in front of like large audiences at like anime conventions, like with 800 people watching us. And this interview made me the most uncomfortable and nervous I ever thought I could be. So leading up to it, I had to get my dress blues ready. I probably haven't worn those since Gucci's, I don't know, tech school, if that. And it's funny too, because you're an enlisted guy and your enlisted friends find out that you're trying to go as officer. Like, there's a lot of crap talking that was involved, and but at the end of the day, everyone was rallied together, and then they just really helped me get myself ready for this one situation, this thing that like I've been trying to gun for since for a very long time. And so I was ready to go in my dress blues, ready for this officer board. They had me sit in this chair in front of the office, in front of everybody, right, displayed in front of all your buddies. with a sign that said officer interviewed. Sat there in a chair all by myself. They're poking fun at you. At the same time, they're wishing you good luck. So all this tension is building up inside of me. Just thinking, trying to go through my head, like, okay, how's this gonna go down? Who's in that room? What are they gonna ask me? Am I gonna be able to stay in a position of attention the whole time? Am I gonna go through the marching procedures correctly, entering the room? So just flooded with all this anxiety and all these thoughts going through my head, waiting in that chair, having my friends, mess with me and stuff. And then finally my buddy came out, one of the guys that I know in squadron came out of the room and was like, okay, Eric, are you ready? Like, this is it. This is how it's gonna go down, to give me like a pre-briefing of what to do and how to do it going into the room before the whole thing starts. So, facing movements and the chairs here, blah, blah, blah. Just prepping me just before I meet this board. So yeah, he let me know who's gonna be in there. So Lieutenant Colonel, 2 majors, and a captain. So obviously, like me, E4 Airman Barajas, right? Like, oh crap, I gotta talk to, this is gonna be a very high pressure situation. I've been studying for months for this thing, to get ready for past AFOQT, make sure I had all this military information in my head ready to go. It all came down to this moment, right? And my buddy was like, okay, I'm gonna go into the room, I'm gonna close the door, you're gonna wait 30 seconds, stand up, come to the door, and just knock one time really hard, and then wait, and you'll hear someone say enter. So I stood up, I faced the door, and I hit the door as hard as I could, and I waited. And then I heard it, enter. So I opened the door, marched in, and it all began. So again, I went through the interview process, I went through the officer board, right? And I'm gonna spare you those details. Just know that everything I did to prep almost went out the window. Everything changes once you're in that room. And if you have an officer board coming up or you want to prep for it, just do your best and just go for it. So I guess the big question is, right, what happened? So for me, I walked out of that room. I felt not confident about my performance. A lot of things I felt, I could have done way better or just prepared way more. I will tell you one thing though, like, you're trying to sit there, position attention, I had a face mask on. And I thought this was kind of funny. As I started going through my self-introduction, my face mask kept going up and 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 up. And then finally I said, I had to apologize because, in the middle of my whole thing, I memorized my self-introduction. I had to say, sir, I'm so sorry. May I adjust my face mask? It just broke the seriousness, the vibe, the whole thing that I was trying to pull off. It just went out the window within 30 seconds of this whole thing. So I waited, I think it was a week or two, and I finally, I got the call. Hey, sorry, you didn't get it. We went with somebody else. At first I was very disappointed. I put all this work in to get it, blah, blah. I studied my ass off for months, and I, drove up the coast of California to go take the AFOQT, and then drove back down to come to do the officer board, and, all this stress I put on my friends and family or whatever. So I was disappointed, right? So, I wanted to do this for so long. But then I started thinking more logically and realistically about it. Although I am an older person, I felt like I was a good candidate, but it went with the person that was better. Just, that's all it was, I didn't feel wronged in any way. The right for the person for the job, got it. Anyways, I hope this video helped. If you're thinking about trying to go in as officer, I highly recommend reaching out to those recruiters and listening to them, because if you come into a lot of roadblocks with trying to be an officer, and you're not prior service or anything like that, definitely consider enlisting first. Those opportunities those officer openings and slots are a lot easier to get into as an enlisted person. If you're an enlisted guy and you're older and you're thinking about going through the process, I would say 100% just do it. Just take a leap of faith and see if you can do it, because I believe that you will regret not trying versus not getting it. So yeah, don't be afraid to fail, just go for it. See if you get it. I'll be rooting for you. If you guys have any questions or concerns about the whole process, just feel free to hit me up. If you need some advice, feel free to, again, leave your questions or comments down below. I will respond to all of them. Shoot me an email if you need some more context or contacts for recruiters. Join our Facebook group, Joining the Military for Older People ages 30 and up. I'll leave a link to that down below. And if there are any other videos you want to see, just let me know. I'll try to make them. Thanks again for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought